In this episode, we're going to take a look at two of the best units on either side of the ball. One is the Dallas Cowboys. They're the number 2 DVOA offense in 2019. Now, what does DVOA mean? That really is an efficiency rating for the offense and the defense. And so what you're doing is you're tracking on each down and kind of where you are in the field and calculating the efficiency of how many yards were gained. I like to use efficiency ratings because it kind of takes away, as we all know, you can have a lot of yardage, but you don't necessarily score, or you can score a ton, but you don't have a lot of yardage, and so you can kind of get this imbalance with your numbers. But if you track the DVOA, you get really kind of an efficiency rating of how efficient was that offense or how efficient was that defense. So Dallas had the number 2 DVOA after the Baltimore Ravens on offense, and then obviously New England last year had a historic year defensively and was number 1 by far, by almost like 10 percentage points. So we're going to take a look at 5 different clips and kind of how they defended the Cowboys, how New England defended the Cowboys, and vice versa. So here, what I like about the Cowboys, their offense, and I know that they get a bunch of slack for the ineptitude of the offense, but it was efficient last year, and it was relatively good. It just didn't all fit together. I'm from Dallas, so I hear about it all the time on sports radio. So you can't deny the efficiency of the offense last year. They use a lot of big sets, and by big sets, I mean 21 and 12 personnel. And really what that does is everybody's trying to load the box with Ezekiel Elliott in the back. And then what I like, too, is they use Dak's legs to move him around, but then they try and get Amari Cooper into one-on-ones and different things like that. So what New England ends up doing, and really they're flooding the box right here, and what this really is this is a cover 1 scheme. But what you're seeing, and I've talked about this before on MatchQuarters, and I've talked about this in different clinics, is that instead of leaving this guy high to really defend no one, you're actually bringing him down. So he's actually kind of cheating and looking at this. You're actually adding him to the box. So it's kind of like an inverted way of these quarters teams that say, oh, well, we're getting 9 in the box, and what they're doing is they're just kind of playing robber with the corners over the top of everything, and then they're bringing those hash safeties down into the box to get that 9-man box and really flood that box. Well, what you're doing now in this cover 0, now this in particular, I really like it because a lot of times in these 21 personnel sets, you're going to get some sort of, especially with the reduction on one side, is you're going to get some sort of post, and then you're going to get some sort of over route, and then you may get some sort of leak out at some point. And maybe it's from the tight end spot or it's a running back, but you're going to get some sort of leak out. So what you end up doing, the offense ends up building 3 levels. Okay? And so this is bait. This is bait for these guys. These guys are the ones, they're kind of coming up, and it's play action, and so they kind of dangle this piece in front of you, and everybody's bait. This is really the read area. This is the intermediate area. So if you think about it in terms of efficiency, the further away I get from the quarterback, the less efficient the pass is going to be, just because it has to travel further and longer, and then you have to also protect it. Now, what you want as a defense is to force the throws as far away from the center point as you possibly can. So any kind of defense, especially in the NFL, you basically play in the middle of the field. You want to try and force everything on the outside, because the further away it gets from the quarterback and then further down the field, you're going to get a less efficient pass. This is why everybody always says the fade route, even though it's sexy, it's one of the least efficient passes because it's just so far and away from the quarterback. Now, this part is what you would call the alert, or it's the push out. So if you're a West Coast offensive guy, you've probably seen that a lot of these posts have alert written by them. And that is just to say, hey, if all hell breaks loose, or this guy falls down and the safety ends up sucking up on something and this guy's just running naked down the field, then you would pass the ball. Or what they do is that they would tag a play with alert at the end of it to tell them, hey, we're working top down. Now, most air raid offenses today are working top down anyway. So that's kind of how these things work. So let's run through and see what the pass combination is here. Now, what this ends up being is a little bit different from those, because they're using max protection play action. This becomes what I call an isolation play. So what the Cowboys have said is like, look, we're going to block with everybody. We're going to end up doing this. Everybody's going to slide this way, and then we're going to run little option routes with these guys. Okay, and so what you've done is you've isolated it. Now in a cover one scheme, this guy, it's going to be really hard for him to make any kind of play on anything outside. These out, like for instance, this outside breaking route here, that guy's never going to make that route. But what you can do is usually you have somebody that's going out and then you have somebody that's coming in. And that's where you can steal a guy in this. So let's let this run through. You have a safety blitz from the edge, which I like that. What I also like too is this guy ends up kind of hanging back. He's going to go, and then you have this massive humanity that's coming off the edge, and then he's almost unblockable unless this guy ends up getting a wind back. And then what this does too is it frees. Here's what ends up being your linebacker. Here ends up being your Will, your Mike, and your Sam. Even though this guy's ended up going, those end up being your 3 linebackers from this look. Okay, and then now everybody's going. Now 54 right here, he's kind of what you would call that rat guy, that rat spy guy. He ends up sitting here. We end up having, it's really not even a cover. It's not really a cover 1 or a cover 0. You kind of just have this guy on top, this guy hanging loose because nobody's really got that tied in. So it'd be interesting to see what they had to say about Witten on first. So what you end up getting is a leverage read. And what I like about this is really the safety and the play that the safety does in this technique. So I guess you could call this cover 1. The safety sinks down into the hole. Now remember I said a lot of times you either get this and this. So what they're probably playing is, hey, if he goes up, you work to get the double on the top guy. Safety's going to end up cutting this off. Or what they're saying is, hey, this guy's a non-threat. We believe this guy can cover him. We want you sinking down in case anything comes over here. And then you end up doubling the crossing route, which is really the route that people are trying to get to. So this is a great look at it. The safety sinks down right into the hole. He's reading eyes, playing eyes coverage right in the middle. He sees the quarterback looking this way. Corner has outside leverage because of the divider, and he's just going to end up sinking in on top. And so what you end up getting is that sandwich, which is what you want. You want to have a guy high and a guy low. So I thought this was a really clever way of playing this scheme right here, which is really nice. Ends up being an incomplete play. So again, I'll let that run from the top just so y'all can see it. So you got 21 personnel. They motion a guy out. You end up getting the dig or the choice route up top and then the comeback route on the bottom. Dak kind of singles in, probably because he sees the guy go the outside leverage and he knows that that's going to be an in-breaking route. Now, just for one thing to talk about dividers, you know, him being inside the numbers, there's more space out here, so you can kind of see him feather out and take that outside, knowing that his help is going to be in here. So what he's trying to do is funnel everything inside. So it's almost like a bait for these receivers. He knows, okay, now I can go inside, except for that safety sitting right there. So here, I'll let it run through the whole play. Nice job. I like the technique. I like the little scheme thing right there. That's really nice by New England. Okay, second play we're going to have is really what I like this technique over here by the corner. And you see, I saw it multiple times. This is what I call a peek technique. So peek is a technique that you use in cover 2. So what you're going to get is they're trying to make it look like it's going to be cover 3. He's going to hammer down on that tight end. He's leaning to the 2 receiver speed side, except for at the indicator. You end up seeing him jettison himself out into the top to get over top. So you end up getting a cover 2 scheme right here. Now, the technique by the corner right here is what you call peek. I like this. This is what you would call a kick step, or what I call a feather technique by the corner, and he's keeping outside leverage because of the location of the wide receiver. He's getting forced out on this speed route, so he ends up stacking that guy, but the moment that he does it, he ends up looking inside. So his eyes are still inside. So even though he's playing that, he's not manning up the guy. He's going to sit on top of that fade route right there to inhibit it, to help this guy out. And then obviously the linebacker's got inside leverage. He's got to jettison himself out there when he gets that. He's got to do a better job of hugging that hip right there. Knowing though that the corner's going in, you can see him. He gives an out call to that corner. Corner drops down, and it's you know, they give up some yards. But if you're in the NFL and you're living on 5-yard outs by Jason Witten, you're probably not going to do very well in the game. But it's a good look at what I would call the peak technique of, it looks like he's going to play man. So notice how he punches with the offhand. So the inside hand comes out. He's doing that. But he's working to fight on top with eyes inside. He does a good job later in the game, too, of actually turning with the guy, almost like a man turn, and then getting his eyes back inside and dropping out on that out route. Dallas really tried to attack those outside edges, especially as much cover 2 and quarters as they were getting against that. So that's a good look. This is a good look at that. And this is a good look down here of how it plays out, almost like a kind of like a box down here. Is that he's gonna hold that inside. He's gonna hold the inside of one. He's got kind of the alley. He's got the crease. He's sitting on top, and then he's kind of outside, funneling everything back inside. I thought that was a good, really taking advantage of doubling these slot guys so they don't have a way to go. A lot of these teams in the NFL, they want to option with this slot guy. They get here, and he either goes here or he goes here off of leverage. Well, this is a good example of how you can kind of wall that off with these two guys walling that off. He's capping any vertical, and then he's kind of working outside in. It almost plays like a trips coverage to this bunch. But what it ends up doing is he would have the quarter. He's got quarter. He's kind of got anything that pushes out. He's got anything, and that's where you get that what you call box, kind of the basic quarters concept right there to the bottom. It's good stuff. I'll let that run through so y'all can see it. Nice peak technique up top. Sees the ball, brings him down. All right, this is one of the differences between the NFL and college. Anytime you go under center, you can be more aggressive with your front 7 guys. So if this was a shotgun and this guy starts hammering in, like I'm going to show you, what we start seeing in the college game and in the high school game is that you start getting these in-breaking routes. So you can imagine as this plays out, look at how, he's showing the ball, he's hammering. In the college game, you'd start getting this, but you can't do that from under the center because he would have to stop and then throw the ball, which most likely you could get somebody at that point to kind of bail out of there. So it's one of those things that when you see this in the NFL, they don't necessarily have to worry about RPOs from under center unless it's a real quick throw. And so what you get is these suffocating runs, nice run through by that Mike linebacker. And here's a difference too. You can tell, they're in 11 personnel, so that these guys are playing 4 down, whereas in the prior clip that we saw, they were playing 3 down versus kind of a bigger set. You're going to get that nice run through by the linebacker. You've got the nickel or the sand linebacker is out here, and he's almost untouched because New England's playing with a wide 9, occupying that tight end. All he's got to do is he knows he's fitting in this gap, but if that running back bounces it out, now he bounces out with it. Nice run through, too, by that guy really forcing that running back. He now has to work outside. So it all fits together real nice. So again, that run through right there doesn't allow him to kind of hold that edge right there and get downhill. That flash of blue makes him bounce it out, which now he can get out here, and that D end also has leverage as well. Ends up being nice, a gang tackle right there. So I'll let that run from the top. Nice run through. Nickel ends up finding him on the other side. All right, let's take a look at kind of how the New England fit these plays. Here is what their 3 down look like. So you've got a 0, you've got a 5 to a tight end, and that's usually typical. A lot of teams will pull that guy. They'll start in a 404, and then if they get a tight end, they'll pull that guy, and now he may become a 4-eye just to kind of help it. Some will slant to the tight end. Other guys will just tell them, hey, instead of getting in a 4, let's go ahead and get in a 5 if you got a tight end. And then obviously you have your 2 outside linebackers. The other thing that I noticed that they did is, even though that they don't really have 4 outside linebackers in, they've got that safety, and he actually played away from the tight end. They dropped the safety down on the tight end if they wanted to play single high. And then they left him almost as, like, instead of putting your Sam linebacker over here, they put him kind of as the weak linebacker. If you think about it, if they fit weak side like this, he doesn't have a gap, so he can kind of be, if he needs to jettison into coverage, he's fine because he's pretty much gapped out. And then you can kind of play heavy through here, and then that safety now has the C gap, and then he's now hammering down on the edge. So you end up protecting your guys that way. But I just wanted to show you kind of the fits of how they ended up defending this. So you can see 93 fall back into that B gap. I get asked a lot, how do you play a heavy 5 and what happens on wide zone? Well, if you get reached, that's fine, but man, you got to climb. So you can see 93 climb right here. You're getting really the edge set here. Even though technically that gap is open, there's not anybody in that gap. 32 is in that gap, but you can see the compression of these guys. There's nobody that's going to run through that hole anyway. And 93 does a good job of kind of forcing that out. You can see 71 lag, and then 55 is fighting to get to the B gap. So what I said earlier is he's going to get that A gap. No matter what, he's got that B gap. He's really a free player to really track that back. Over here, he's going to fight and fall off into the B. He's going to have A, and then he's going to set the hole. So again, this lane is going to be open, but watch how tight that these two get. There's no way that guy's going to be able to run through that. And so what you end up getting is, just by him holding the edge right here, you end up getting him, you end up wall setting here, you compress this gap, and it ends up eliminating itself, even though that it's there. And that's not even really stealing a gap. 32's in that gap. It's just not going to hit right there. What I like about this is that because 71 ends up almost getting double zoned, and technically he does get double zoned, and this is kind of what you tell that lag nose, is that you grab the center so he can't climb up, and then you put your other arm on him. As he gets double zoned, well, this guy's occupied here because he's trying to cross face. There's nobody for 23. And again, you're putting a speedy guy there, you're putting a safety there, and that's easy for that guy. This guy has to take 71. So I think what they're saying is that center knows he's falling off, so he's got to work over here. He's got to really fight to come over here. Well, 55 is basically blocking the tackle. So you have the defense actually blocking an offensive guy, and what that ends up creating is this huge lane right here. 23 is unblocked because, again, this is 11 personnel. There's nobody for the wind back. There's no lead blocker. They don't have anybody coming back. Nice job by 23. Meets him in the hole, and then 93 is on the other side because he beat the tackle, which I think is, again, showing that heavy technique. I hit on the outside. I feel him trying to work, so now I'm going to rock back. You know, to this guard, that looks like, okay, that guy's been taken. I'm now going to work to 51. Now we're going to try and double 51 at the point of attack. But what ends up happening is this guy is untouched. And then again, you've got him folding into the gap. So I really like how they fit this with their front right here, and how really kind of how that odd front looks versus, and that 404 in particular looks against this wide zone right here. Nice job. All right, let's take one last look at, again, at how they were doing it. Now, earlier I showed you they were in kind of a 404 look. Now they're getting into a 505. You know, and now this is that 12 personnel, almost a 13 personnel look with Amari Cooper coming here in the end to really seal that guy off. And you get the same thing. So this is more or less just a zone. But because they got two out here, they're going to out it. Okay? He's taken. They're working this way. Everybody's working their way over here. There's nobody again for 23. Nobody blocks 23. So let's look at it again. And really what they're doing is they're putting it in a telephone booth. Okay, so what you have is they understand, okay, they're probably playing heavy over here. So he flashes here. He works. He's coming into B. So that's why you get the out. Okay, they want to take care of these guys. That nose just kind of sits and hangs. He's going to take here, and they're all stepping down and working. So again, let's watch this from the top. And with what I like too is with that Mike linebacker charging that B gap. Okay, that guard and center can't really work. So that center's really got to work on that nose and really hang on that nose. And again, it just nobody can get to 23 because 70 sees this flash right here. This guy's got to take him because they got 3 outside. So you're going to end up getting this. You can't assume Amari Cooper's going to block somebody, right? So you get this through the gap. He now has to kind of wall that before he can work over here. So you can't get this look over here. And it's just a nice little scheme by using a little pop. I like against these heavy run teams. I really like these pops, especially to the play side or especially to the strength. It really puts pressure on that guard and it forces that center to really handle this guy. And then if you're going to get the out look, I mean, this guy's wide open with nobody to block. So I'll let that run through. Nice job. All 23 has to do right there is make the play. So again, hopefully you got something out of it. An episode of Chess Match going through the little nuances of the game, different things that we see as we go through these games. Hopefully you get a little bit more of understanding of what the Cowboys were trying to do and what New England was trying to do. If you like the video, make sure to subscribe to MatchQuarters YouTube page. Always visit MatchQuarters.com for the latest and defensive content. Follow me on Twitter at @the_coach_A. I've got 4 books on Amazon. Make sure you click the link, the book link on the website.